Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Starry Scoop Live. Before we begin today's episode, I'd first like to thank a few groups that have made today possible. Firstly, Westfield Community Programming. Secondly, Westfield Technical Academy for letting me use their equipment. Peter Coles, Brady LePage, and of course my special guest today, Colin White. Colin, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Colin is an amateur astronomer. He's part of the Westfield High School Space and Astronomy Club. He owns his very own telescope, and he's been into astronomy for a few years. So to get today's episode started, I'd first like to talk about a few recent events. Recently, I had the opportunity to attend a little observing event at Munger Hill Elementary School. It was planned and it was run completely by Christina Goulet, my younger sister. Very proud of her. And throughout the event, I'd say it was very successful, and over 70 kids were in attendance, along with their families, their siblings. So it was great. It was very, very, very busy. Joining me that night was, of course, my father. Andy Liu, vice president of the Westfield High School Space and Astronomy Club, also went to help out. And you'll see here in these photos, we had a variety of telescopes. We had a Dobsonian telescope, which is easy to use. We swung it around to Venus. It was in its crescent phase, so that's always neat to see. Jupiter was out. We had a Galilean moon visible that night as well. Mars, of course, the moon, and I think we even glimpsed the Orion Nebula, even though it was very, very light polluted that night, and that was with a different telescope. I'd also like to mention and thank Mayor Mike McCabe for showing up. It was a very pleasant surprise to see him attend, and I hope to do more of that soon. So if there's any elementary schoolers watching, any parents, feel free to reach out to me or my sister Christina Goulet. We'd love to host more observing events at the schools. So secondly, I'd also like to talk about the lunar eclipse that we all heard about that occurred earlier this month on the very early morning hours of March 14th. Now, as you know, most of Western Mass got clouded out. Of course, it's New England. The weather's always a bit iffy, and that night it was pretty bad. I don't know if you saw the eclipse, but I mean, the skies were completely blanketed.
I don't know how you could.
Yeah, I had an event set up at my house, of course, at 2 a.m. on a school night, and I felt terrible for the kids that did attend because, of course, they had to go to school the next day with, 2-3 hours of sleep. But it was a good experience. At the beginning of the night, we did hold on to hope because the glorious full moon was out in the sky. Pristine skies, I mean clear. And then, just as the partial phases were beginning, the clouds rolled in, and we missed all of totality. Now, a lunar eclipse is a very special event. It's when the sun, earth, and moon align, and the earth moves in front of the sun, and it casts a shadow on the moon. And these typically totality for this one was lasting about an hour, so we had a whole window where the clouds just wouldn't move. But I mean, there's another one occurring, I think in about a year, maybe 2. I don't quite know the date, but I hold on to hope. Yeah. They're a bit more common than solar eclipses. So, Colin, you've been into astronomy for a few years now. How did you get your start? How did your love of the night sky kind of kickstart?
So, I believe it started my first year of middle school through you, because I had heard about the astronomy club that you started in the intermediate school, how I just never went to it. I never had the time, at least I thought I didn't. But middle school, I decided to give it a chance. I joined it, and I cannot say I regret a single thing.
Yeah, you've been to quite a few events throughout the years. Do you have a favorite one in particular?
I'm gonna have to say Stellafane.
Yep. For the viewers out there, Stellafane is a astronomy convention held right up in Springfield, Vermont. It's one of the largest astronomy conventions in the world, as you saw when you were there. And I mean, thousands of astronomers worldwide go there. So what was the appeal of Stellafane? What made it stick out to you?
I mean, people go for good reason. I'd say yeah. Astronomy-wise, it has such a dark sky. There is such little pollution. Coming from here and then seeing the sky there, it is, I can't say night and day because it's always night, but it is amazing how much more you can really see.
Yeah. Around here, we have a lot of light pollution. Of course, for good reason. We need to see when we drive our cars at night. But I mean, up in Springfield, Vermont, the skies are just pristine. One thing that you probably remember me competing in at Stellafane was the observing Olympics there. Now, I don't do the typical observing Olympics. Usually you whip out a huge telescope, you look for little deep sky objects. I do the binocular observing Olympics, also known as BOO. And, we walk around with the binoculars. We don't have to worry about the trees too much because we're mobile. And it's just a lot of fun. And again, the barely any light pollution allows for pristine dark skies, which was great.
It was amazing, though I will say, personally, as much as I love the actual astronomy part there, there's so much more you can do, not just looking up, but looking around you. One of my favorite things was the telescope making competition.
Of course.
I just thought it was amazing. It is such a sight of beautiful craftsmanship. The amount of passion put into all of those telescopes, I think it's something that it blows my mind to see how much work people put into this, and it pays off. There were some, I think one of them I remember, it was like a portable one where the walking stick was a part of the telescope and it fit on your backpack.
I remember that. It was pretty neat.
It's just, I said mind-blowing, how much that you can make for the telescopes. You had ones that were beautiful works of art as much as they were functional, and then you had ones that kind of pushed the boundaries of being a telescope, kind of like that walking stick one.
Yeah, I think my favorites have to include the ones made out of wood. The beautiful woodwork, the wood staining, it's just incredible. I could never do something like that. I'm currently in the process of grinding a mirror for a telescope, an 8-inch telescope, and it's a grueling process. And I can't even imagine the workmanship of making a wooden telescope.
Some of the
it's
details,
just amazing.
It's insane how they just carve out so much. Again, the telescope becomes a canvas as much as it is a functional, working, good telescope.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't all. I mean, I think the biggest draw, aside from there's plenty of little events, the big ones I found interesting were the talks too. I only went to a few. It was me, my mom, and my dad. We went there. One of them was with Phil Harrington.
Yep.
History of telescopes. He's an amazing presenter. He really catches your eye. And so I think something about, I talk about the craftsmanship and work, and I think whenever I'm very much an amateur astronomer, as you said, seeing all of the history behind it, I think it brings a whole new perspective to the entire, hobby, for some people, job, the whole thing of astronomy. And learning about the history of telescopes, it's very interesting to see how they've evolved, how the same people, different people with the same goal, all work and build on this concept that was, oh no, because I know we've talked about, how long ago was even the first one? Wasn't it just like a piece of glass?
Yeah, it was in I believe a glasses store.
Yeah, it was just glasses.
Yeah, and they took two lenses and they held them up, and they were able to magnify what they wanted to see. So that's how the first refracting telescopes came to be, and then reflecting came along after that. I know the talk discussed Dobsonian telescopes, also known as sidewalk telescopes.
Because you didn't.
Yep.
Because that was the one thing I was walking across the sidewalk. Just I was thinking about it. And it's something that stuck with me, how they didn't want it to be called Dobsonian. They wanted it to be sidewalk. I mean, clearly Dobsonian sticks a bit easier. But again, it was a very interesting talk. And better yet, kind of the end of the night. It was the last one, correct? Where they had the big talk about women's involvement in astronomy, which was amazing. Who presented that one?
Christine Larson. That was the Twilight talk.
That's what they call
Yeah.
it. It was amazing. I mentioned my parents because I wanted to bring them up. They went there because obviously I couldn't go alone. I don't think I've met a single person who isn't at least somewhat interested in astronomy, even though they don't call it that.
Yeah.
Everyone likes to look at the moon. Everyone thinks space is cool. I've never met someone who said it isn't. But to go there and see that, even they who really just go to support me, walked away amazed. I remember driving home to like our campsite that night, and they would talk about it, and it's just, again, seeing that history, the amount of involvement from everyone, all of the stories. If I remember correctly, it was about how it was at an observatory. It was almost all women, and they chronicled all the things that people saw and all of this work. And it ended pretty tragically, though, didn't it? Because they protected it so much against fires, but didn't it flood?
It did. That's the sad thing.
It's such a
It's
comedic tragedy,
yeah.
yeah. But even still, it wasn't lost, because here we are at this Twilight Talk, taking it all in and learning about it. And I mean, that was the start of my freshman year. It was 3 years ago. I still remember it.
Yeah.
Which, for me, is pretty impressive. I barely remember what I eat this morning. You can't ask me.
Me too.
I don't know math lesson from yesterday, but I'll remember this because it sticks
Yeah.
with you. There's something powerful to it.
No, and I'm glad you mentioned. I believe you were talking about the Harvard computers, women who
That's what it was.
who were nicknamed computers, and the glass plates where they logged their data. And I actually had the opportunity to go and visit the glass plates a few years ago, and I saw the damage, of course, caused by the floods. And as a young girl interested in astronomy, it was amazing to see work done by women. The astronomy community is, again, very, very welcoming, but it's prominently, older males.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see fellow women in astronomy. And I'm glad you mentioned that. And it's made fun for everyone. Everyone. I mean, you go to Cellophane and you don't meet one person who doesn't have a smile on their face. And I think that is what the pull is for so many people.
Mm-hmm. That Twilight Talk, I remember before, it was funny because they had all the raffles. But one thing they did was they did raffles for children, people under, I think it was like 16. There were so many. And it's like you would look around and you'd see them. And, I mean, they're children. It's hard to get children to sit still. I've worked with children before. They were invested, seeing it. And like you said, I think it's such an important thing that they did there. Everything they do is important there. I think it's such a wonderful outlet for astronomy, for getting people to be interested in it. Of course, there's other ways that's more local.
Yeah.
But if you want to get involved and if you can go there, I think it's totally worth it, because it does. It is such a open arms place where I barely knew how to work a telescope at that time, and I left knowing leagues more than I did when I entered.
Yeah. Yeah, and Stellafane happens every year during the new moon weekend of late July, early August. And you can start registering, I believe, in a few weeks. You can find them at their website, Stellafane. And this year's convention is July 24th to July 27th, 28th. So I better see you there. I know that you had work last summer. He did. He has
I have a
very
job.
grueling job.
Working with children, like I mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope I can make time. I wasn't able to go last year. We had my brother was going to college or something 2 years ago, so something like that made it a little hard. But no, it's amazing. I hope I can go back.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm trying to get other members of the Westfield High School Space and Astronomy Club to go, and of course the middle school club as well. It's just an amazing place, and your interest really grows, and they're very supportive there. So they'll foster that interest that people have.
Truly, yeah. I mean, again, it's just such a open arms place. There's so many events. I know one that you did, the solar system walk. It was a great thing. I love solar system walks. I was in one. I've been to three. I think they're such an, again, this is where you have the age groups.
Mm-hmm.
I can go to a talk. I was a freshman. I could go to a talk and learn and take in this information from a big speech. But if I'm a 10-year-old, it's gonna be boring. I'm gonna get tired. Something like the solar system walk, it lets you go out. You can really explore everything, and you kind of get this physical sense. I'm a visual learner myself, so I mean, there's just, again, it's such an open place, and I add, it is beautiful there. Like, just I was trying to find photos. Half my photos are of the view of the mountain tops, of the trees, because again, that's where you have the dark skies, because it is in such a place that it is so outdoors and beautiful. And I think it's beautiful. That's how I would describe it. The community aspect is beautiful. The work people do there, I guess, amazing maybe, but all of it, it's just, I think it's easily my favorite.
Yeah. Well, thank you for talking about cellophane with me. I'm looking forward to this year's convention, and I better see you there again, along with other friends from the Space Astronomy Club at the high school. I'm looking at you. But to end things off here, I'd like to discuss a few upcoming events. Tomorrow morning, by the time this episode airs, it might have already happened, but we have a partial solar eclipse occurring as the sun rises. The photos showing here are from an event similar to the one that's taking place tomorrow from 2021. And this is when the moon covers only some of the sun. I believe it's about 40%. And this happens as the sun is rising. So it's called, quote unquote, double sunrise, because we see, like in the photos, two horns sticking above the horizon of the sun, and it slowly comes up. This event tomorrow will be a bit difficult to observe because the sun rises at about 6:37, and the eclipse only lasts until 7:07. So we'll need a very, very low horizon. I haven't really decided on a location yet to observe it, but I'll be researching it a bit with my father tonight, and of course my sister. And if I get any photos, I'll be sure to share them with everyone. Of course, the forecast does call for clouds and rain, but I have my fingers crossed that this won't turn out like the lunar eclipse from a few weeks ago. Fingers crossed, because I think it'll be an amazing event, a great experience for people I plan to bring along with me to it. And again, fingers crossed. Of course, coming up, we also have galaxy season for all my observers out there. Galaxies galore can be found in Leo the Lion, Virgo the Lady, Coma Berenices. And it's just a wonderful time to bring out those telescopes, even a pair of binoculars, and look up. Galaxy season is springtime, anywhere between now until late May. It's a perfect time to observe all the galaxies seen within the region I just discussed. And this is because the Earth is facing away from the very densely packed galactic center of our galaxy and looking towards all the fainter galaxies. And there's nothing in between us and them to impede their view. So it's an excellent time to get out there and maybe dust off those telescopes from the colder winter months. So with that, I'd like to say goodbye to my viewers and thank you for watching. And again, thank you, Colin, for being on today's episode.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. If you'd like to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, you can find me on there. My name is Caitlin Goulet, and I write the Starry Scoop. It's a monthly newsletter, so be sure to subscribe to that as well. Thank you and have a good day.